I'm Enam Gbewonyo here at Adelaide Studios, and today we are switching things up. We thought it was about time we turned the tables and put Adelaide in the hot seat. I know you've all been dying to find out exactly what she's about as an artist, so we thought we would take the time out to do that. So stay tuned, people. I'm going to be going in. Can you summarise your practice for us?
Okay, so up until last year around this time, I would have called myself a figurative painter because I was very much focused on the figure, on the human form, and using the human form to tell stories. And I would incorporate text onto the work as well, onto the canvas, to help me to be able to tell those stories. But more recently, in the last year, I was challenged by a colleague of mine who is Rachel Ara, who actually has a studio here at Thameside Studios. She gave me a critique and she suggested that I break away from the classic figurative, or trying to be that kind of classic figurative painter, and think about really trying to tell the stories that I wanted to tell in a way. She told me to think about the absence of the figure, and I struggled with that for a long time. And then through a number of different inspirations, I came to the conclusion that body printing was the way that I was going to do that. So I knew Eve Klein, David Hammonds, also Enam Gbewonyo, and I think maybe the red came from Enam Gbewonyo, I don't know, but I like to use this colour, a very specific colour of red called alizarin crimson, because I feel like with the way that I'm working, it kind of looks like blood, and but not so much dried blood, but not at the same time not necessarily fresh. And I think red is a very emotive colour, and it's not an angry colour for me. It's my favourite colour actually. And I wanted to cause a visceral reaction, and so that's it really. I like to use my body to tell stories with the paint, and I like to use text as well, and I'm also incorporating photo transfers, image transfers, which bring in elements of my history, family, culture, heritage, and all of that as well.
So when did you know you wanted, I guess you kind of answered it, but when did you know that you wanted to be an artist?
I think 2005, it just hit me, because I didn't know until then that I could do that. And then the more I researched and the more I started speaking to other artists and learning about their journeys, the more I knew that this was for me. And the more I did it as well, the more natural it felt. And I think in the last couple of years especially, it's really come home that this is just me, this is just who I am.
So are you a full-time or part-time?
Full-time.
Full-time. And how do you manage that? Pray tell.
Well, I'm very lucky in that I found a patron a couple of years ago. So that in between my selling work, it really helps me because that means I'm getting money every month, whether I sell a painting or not.
Okay, so do you sell your work from your studio?
Sometimes, So, with the example of him, yes, he came to the studio and bought work, and other times it's exhibitions. So,
And I know, as part of your studios, you have open studios quite a lot. Do you find that helps kind of generate new interest?
Definitely, the last open studios we had was quite recently. We used to do them twice a year, and I felt that was too much, to be honest. So now we do them once a year. And it helps in terms of generating interest, not necessarily leading to sales, but definitely in terms of generating interest and buzz and all of that.
Okay. So are you represented?
No.
Okay. And how do you feel about that? Is that something that you aspire to?
To be honest, I used to really want representation, and I did have at one point a gallery in Copenhagen. Unfortunately, the owner of the gallery passed away, and so that ended. But I used to really think that was the be-all and end-all of life in terms of being an artist. But I don't think it's a necessary requirement in order to have a sustainable career as an artist. But I do think that if you can get a gallery, a big gallery, who is able to invest in your career, then I think that's the ideal way to go, but it's definitely not the only way to go.
Okay. So can you remember when you sold your first piece?
I think Yejide, my friend Yejide, who I mentioned, we went to school together, and Sam was her partner at the time, so they've both got, Yejide's probably got the biggest collection of my work.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so she sort of started investing in my work from way back. I can't even remember when. And the same with Sam. Sam bought a piece or two. This is years ago. I don't even probably early 2000s.
Oh, fantastic.
So before all of this really started.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's nice as well that it's people that you know and you have close relationships with as well. That's amazing. Yeah. So can you remember what that first sale felt like?
Well, it was epic.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even though they're my friends, it still felt really good that they valued the work enough to give me actual money for the work. Yeah. And I think it was only a couple of £100 or something, but that really, really was very touching. You know, it really meant a lot that they're willing to part with hard-earned cash for work. And I mean, I've done work for them for free and just given them work as gifts as well. But the fact that they were willing to do that was it's a huge confidence booster as well. When you're an artist and you're really struggling to get yourself started, and it doesn't matter if it's your friends or family, but they're actually willing to part with cash so that they can own a piece of what you do. That's really a big deal.
It gives you that validation.
It does, yeah.
So, this is the big one. What has been your biggest challenge to date as an artist, and how did you overcome it?
It's another funny one that I've never thought about for myself. Now, I guess it's those financial hurdles. Yeah. To be honest, it's those financial hurdles and keeping yourself afloat, and. Before I had the patron, I was working all the hours that God sent in order to be able to maintain my practice, and also there were certain times when, I mean, this kind of ties in as well. Actually, I'm going to say something which some people may see as controversial. Okay. And that is that being a female in the art world, right? You can come across some quite lecherous people who will want to take advantage of you when they see that you are struggling and in need of help. And so one of the most challenging things that I faced, which is tied into the whole financial thing, was when I was preparing for my exhibition called Supermodels. And during the preparation for that show, I got to know a man who was a businessman, and he was willing to invest £30,000 in order for me to really do the show in a very big way. And when it came down to it, we got a contract together and everything, and he was taking me to go and purchase materials. We also went to see a few gallery spaces that we were going to hire. And I will never forget, as long as I live, we were in his van and he was driving me back home after we'd been on one of these shopping trips, and he turned to me and he said, "So Adelaide, what are you prepared to do for this money?" I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "What are you prepared to do for this money?" I said, "You're going to have to be a bit more explicit, because I don't understand what you mean." I wanted to make sure that I wasn't getting the wrong end of the stick. And he basically said, he told me the story of another lady who wanted to get into business. She needed £20,000. He gave her the £20,000 in exchange for her sleeping with him. Wow. And so when he told me that story, he looked at me again in the eyes and said, "So what are you prepared to do for that money? Because you know that I like you." And I looked at him and I said, "Take the money and stick it up your arse. I will do this exhibition with or without you." That's it.
Yeah.
He dropped me off home. He was very angry. The next day he called me on the phone. He was screaming at me, telling me that you're never going to be anything other than a political artist, and political artists never make any money. Your work is too political. It's never going to sell. I wasn't even making political work just because I did some work about race. Anyway, so how I overcame that specific challenge was by being very open with my friends, and my friends and family each contributed to doing this exhibition by sponsoring canvases. So basically, for that Supermodels exhibition, on the back of every piece is somebody's name, sponsored by Yejide, sponsored by Abigail, sponsored by Jareen, sponsored by, so all of these different people in my life sponsored canvases, whether that was £20 or £50 or £100, everybody sponsored different pieces of work. So it took me 2 years to put that show on. Right? Yeah. Instead of 6 months. Yeah. But I got there. Exactly. I ended up with 18 paintings. Yeah. And
it's a fantastic show from what I've seen.
Thank you.
You know, you got a lot of really great response from it.
Thank you.
And actually, I feel like that ended up turning out for the better because you had people that really meant something to you sponsoring this. So there's like a really nice story around each piece, which makes it so much more important than how it would have come together before. But I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. That's just, and it's shocking and abominable that there are people in this industry that feel like they have every right to treat, you know, artists that way.
To be honest,
female artists, I should say. Well,
to be honest, he's not an art world person. He was completely outside of the industry, but like, he's just a man who saw an opportunity to try and take advantage of somebody who was in a vulnerable position. And this is just unfortunately what happens in the patriarchal world that we live in sometimes. But as a woman, it's understanding how you deal with that and knowing that you don't have to submit to that. There are other ways of getting to where you want to get to. You don't have to subjugate yourself and I don't even know the word, but you don't have to put yourself in that kind of position in order to get what you want. You can get what you want and still be able to look yourself in the mirror and know that you got there on your own terms and not because you got on your knees for some guy.
Completely. Wow.
Or woman.
Wow. Okay. So, well, actually, this kind of relates really well to, you know, what we were just talking about. Are you conscious of any issues facing you as a female artist due to gender bias? How do you overcome them and continue having a career?
Well,
that's a prime example.
That is a prime example, but also what I find interesting is that I think I'm probably hyper aware of this bias just because I'm constantly investigating it. Whenever I'm interviewing artists, if you're a woman, I'll ask you that question. If you're a black woman, I'll ask you that question. If you're Asian, I'll ask you that question. But I'll ask it in relation to who you are, what your identity is. So for me, I'm hyper aware that that thing exists. And in terms of navigating it, all I can do is, I mean, growing up, you probably know, as black people in the UK, our parents always said to us, you have got to work 2 or 3 or 4 times harder than your white counterparts in order to get to the same position. So it's just that. Like, I just work ridiculously hard. And whether that is networking, whether that is time in the studio, everything I do, I just go so over the top. Sometimes that means I burn myself out, but I know that in order to get to where I want to get to, that's what I need to do. I need to just keep on pushing hard. And I know that I'm nowhere near where I want to be in terms of who I am as an artist. But if I just keep on pushing in the way that I'm pushing, that I'm going to get there. And even if I only get halfway there, then that is going to be a massive step forward. And also in terms of that gender bias specifically, I think that being in the collective helps massively.
Definitely.
Because all of us together are greater than the sum of our parts. And so if you can join any kind of collective it's always going to help you to overcome those kinds of challenges, whatever your specific challenge is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I think we're really lucky because in terms of the collective, we each come with different strengths, and so that just makes us stronger as a whole.
Yep.
And it means that, you know, there are, different people in the team that can take on different things.
Yes.
And which makes it so much easier to kind of navigate, but also means as well that we're taken more seriously as a collective because, you know, there's a group of us and we're really official, and, you know, we've got a constitution, for goodness sake. So people will take us much more seriously than if it was one person by themselves trying to kind of, you know, gain access and navigate it. So brilliant. Okay. So I mean, seriously. So are you conscious of any prejudice facing you as a black artist? Black female artist, might I add.
Yeah.
If so, how do you overcome that?
Yes.
Can I just say, we are filming this the day after we did a panel session on the value of black British female artists. So I think this question is so poignant.
It's
for
so
us having done
pertinent.
this.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, that was our whole panel yesterday, really. But yeah, I mean, I'm hyper aware of prejudices and difficulties and biases based on our gender and our race. And those things come through from on a subconscious level and on a conscious level. But when you get to the point where you're consciously aware of those things, that's when you can rise above them. I don't think it does anyone any good wanting to live in this utopia that doesn't actually exist.
You have to be realistic.
You have to be realistic, and you have to have your eyes open to the reality of the world that you live in. Otherwise, how are you ever going to get anywhere? It's all well and good to say that, oh, everything is all love and I'm colourblind and there's no gender bias. It's nonsense, because the thing is happening. It's there's institutional racism and there's institutional sexism. All of those structural things are in place specifically to stop us from getting to where we want to get to, and to keep the people who are in power, to keep them there so that they can stay there. And that's not anything against individuals. That's just the structure of the system that has been in existence for centuries. So in order to be able to navigate that and have a successful career, your eyes have to be open to the fact that it's happening in the first place. And when that happens, then you can put things in place like being in collectives, right? Like putting on your own shows, like just being organised and getting into formation. To
borrow from Beyonce.
To borrow from Beyonce. So then only when you do that can you move forward. And well, I don't think only when you do that, because like we were saying yesterday, there are certain outliers. So there's this quota system in place. So there are certain token people who the establishment wants to give the spotlight to and say, well, such and such is here, therefore there's no problem.
We've ticked that box.
Which is nonsense, because look at everybody else. There's so many, I know just from the people that we know, countless talented black and minority artists who are not getting a look in. Some of who are far more talented than the people who are at the top, who are not getting a look in. And it's not because they're not working hard, it's not because they're not putting themselves out there, it's just because the quota is filled at this moment in time. So the only way that we can push past that is if we create structures for ourselves, we create shows for ourselves. And that's not to say that we are excluding or putting two fingers up to the establishment or trying to be somehow offensive or something like that. It doesn't mean that. It just means that we need to survive. We need to eat too. And
so you have to take ownership of that.
Exactly.
In order to be able to sustain your career, you need to take ownership of it and make it happen for yourself. Instead of just sitting back and waiting to be discovered. And I think that's the same for any artist, really, isn't it? So.
And then that can include, in the process of doing that, right, and getting attention to yourself, you can create new markets,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
But at the same time, you can also cause people who are not aware of you to be
pay
aware
attention.
of you
Yeah.
and to pay attention to you.
Yeah, because that's
And
it. As soon as you're
exactly.
buzzing, you know, as soon as there's noise around you, you know, people start to take notice.
Yep.
And-
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you define success in the art world? This is an interesting one. How would you define it? Or for you personally, what does success look like?
Okay, so for me personally, success would be selling consistently. And when I say consistently, like, it doesn't have to be Damien Hirst kind of money.
Although that would be nice.
Exactly, that would be nice. But, you know, that kind of regularity of selling work, so that even though I'm so grateful to have a patron, I would like to be in a position where I wouldn't need that. And if that was taken away from me, that I could still continue.
Yeah.
So that at this moment in time, that's kind of the next step for what I would consider to be success. But in terms of like huge, I guess like there are, and I know there are a lot of people who say this, just being an artist is an success. It is a success in and of itself, which I think is true. But I also feel like I have big ambitions.
Yeah.
And I think part of the thing that compels me to make the work that I'm making at the moment, which is where I'm actually making prints of myself onto the work, is this kind of this lifelong fear of death.
Yeah.
And this lifelong wish to be remembered.
To have a legacy.
And to have a legacy. I don't have any children. I'm probably not going to have any children. And so for me, a success would be that before I die, knowing that I have been included in the canon, right? And I am an important part as well of art history. I think for me that would be a success. And so that doesn't necessarily have to include massive sales, but that just means that, you know, you are relevant, you are written about, people are studying you in school, people are studying you at university, people are having academic conferences where they're talking about the important contribution your work has made to art history.
So I guess it's about making a difference in some way, isn't
yeah,
it?
Yeah. So I think that would be the most important success for me. So yeah, it's leaving an imprint, which is what I'm doing with this work.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we've kind of answered this already. Would you consider yourself to be a success? And I kind of told you that you are. So
no, I don't. I don't think I am anywhere near that.
Okay.
Because obviously by the definition that I've just given you,
that
I'm not anywhere near that.
But do you feel like you're on the way?
I do feel like I'm closer to that now than I was, say, 5 years ago, like much closer. And I do feel like all of the activities, everything that I'm doing, including the work that I'm making actually, is more in line with that happening. So,
Okay. All right, so this one, what advice would you give to your younger self? You ask this to every artist, and I really want to hear your answer. So they're just stepping out into the art world. What advice would you give?
To myself back in the day when I first came out. Okay, so the first thing I would say is instead of going to business conferences, go to galleries, right?
But I mean, it worked for you. Each person is different.
I guess. I suppose if I hadn't gone to that conference, I wouldn't have met Emile and I wouldn't have had that show. But in addition to that, I would have said go to shows, see as much work as you can, speak to as many artists as you can, and just keep learning and making new work. And I probably would have tried to get myself on a master's course or something like that then. Like, I don't have time to do anything like that now, but then I definitely would have had the time to do that. So I would have said that.
And then to a stranger?
To a stranger now who's just starting off something like me, I would definitely say the same thing. Go and see as many shows as you can, speak to as many artists as you can, develop relationships with other artists, develop relationships with galleries. All of this stuff I'm doing now, and that's happening through my interviews. But also work with other artists. Don't see other artists as competition. See them as your colleagues and your friends. And that, to me, is kind of upsetting and frustrating and annoying when I see artists being bitchy about each other and not wanting to help the next artist, holding information back because they don't want somebody to take over from them. Look, everybody has got their own time. Everybody has got their own journey. And we also live in a world of abundance. Do you know how much this art world is worth? Billions. There's enough space for everybody. So there's no need to be nasty. So I would say just make friends, because some of the relationships that I have built with other artists have been the relationships that have pushed me forward in terms of my practice, in terms of my confidence, in terms of my career. And that sharing of ideas and the sharing of opportunities and all of that. And then lastly, find yourself, if you can get yourself into some kind of collective, I think that's so important for confidence building, support, but any kind of artist network or community that you can find yourself in, I think is so important to your development and confidence and to just continuing and motivation and putting on shows and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay, all right, brilliant. Any shows coming up?
No. Okay, so we've got the BBFA group show. The BBFA group show is in April of 2018.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm working towards my solo show, which I don't know when that's going to be at the moment. But I'm just making the work, and my challenge is to make 20 new pieces by October.
Fantastic.
So we'll see how that goes.
But also, you are part of a show that's happening in Ghana in August, Chaliwate Street Art Festival, in conjunction with Nabuki Foundation, which is an amazing arts organisation. So it's one of the kind of projects that is happening with the BBFA Collective. And so Adelaide is one of the artists flying out. So hello.
Sorry about that. And we actually got Arts Council funding for that, which is pretty major. That's our first funding that we've got for a project, which is a real achievement. And thanks to Enam. So
thanks to all of us. Fantastic. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's art discussion with myself, Enam Gbewonyo, and Adelaide Damoah in the hot seat for once. I hope you learned so much more about her as an artist. Please do stay tuned in to her YouTube channel for more fantastic interviews, and follow her on social media at #ArtDiscussion and also #ADArt to see more of her amazing new work that she's producing. Thanks, guys.